So today I'm going to be going over my top 5 episodes of Peaky Blinders. So just a disclaimer, this is my opinion, so don't get offended by my opinion, but if you do have different views or opposing views, please make sure to leave a comment. So in position 5, it's season 1 episode 2. This was a toss up between season 1 episode 1 and season 1 episode 2, but I slightly prefer episode 2. I feel like this episode for me explores the characters that were introduced in episode 1 a bit more in depth. I believe it continues to further Tommy's relationship with his family, including Polly, his uncle and his brothers, and it also introduces the main antagonist for season 1 and 2, Major Campbell. The main scenes I like in this episode is the opening scene where Tommy starts a war with the Lee brothers, the scene of Grace and Tommy in the pub, because it really shows Tommy as a character and just how broken emotionally he is at this stage of his life. And I also like the scene with Major Campbell and Tommy where they come to some sort of a deal. The scene with Grace and the scene with Major Campbell are two of the arguably best scenes for me in the whole show. I also appreciate the first few episodes of Peaky Blinders after watching them all and going back and watching the first season again. It puts a perspective on where Tommy is at the start of the seasons and how far he comes throughout the 6 seasons. So for me, it was important to include an episode that was from season 1, and for me, episode 2 is the best one. My next episode is season 4, episode 1. So out of all the episodes, I feel like this one's slightly different. It carries on from the activities that took place in season 3, where the Peaky Blinders family have essentially fallen out with each other, and now they're all living by themselves separately. I feel like this was good because you get to see the characters outside their natural habitats, and almost moved on from the criminal life after seasons 1 to 3. In particular, I thought Tommy was really good in this episode. You get to see his relationship with Michael, new character Jesse Eden, and the fact that half of his family still resent him from the stuff he'd put them through in season 3. You see him in this kind of state of loneliness, where without his family, he's just focusing on his work and ambitions. Overall, I found that episode was very different, and I also thought it was a great episode to go into a season with. A couple of my favourite scenes are the scene where Jesse Eden is introduced and Tommy has a negotiation with them, the scene where Tommy kills a spy that was in his house, and also Tommy's communication with the rest of his family like Michael. Ultimately, I feel like this is a great episode because it creates a great cliffhanger where John was killed at the end. This is the first time we see a member of the core Peaky Blinders family get killed, setting the season up for a massive amount of conflict. I also feel like this episode does a really good job of displaying that even when Tommy gets out the criminal organisation, the things he's done in his previous life in seasons 1 to 3 still have an essence of catching up with him, first dragging him back into that criminal life. And by the end of it, you see them move back to Birmingham for the start of season 4, episode 2. My third favourite episode is season 6, episode 6. So this was the last episode of all seasons. To me, I thought this episode was a really strong finish to all 6 seasons, and I felt like it made up a bit for probably one of the weaker seasons in my opinion, which was season 6. I feel like Tommy's story came to a great conclusion, and there's lots of scenes in this episode where I thought were great. I like the scenes between Alfie and Tommy at the end, and also Michael and Tommy. You kind of see Tommy go through this reflective state all through season 6, and you feel like he kind of puts an end to it by the end of episode 6 of that season by not killing his doctor and riding off in the horse, which was the same way he came in on season 1, episode 1. It also closed the storylines off quite poetically, including introducing his new son killing the spy, Billy, and also distinguishing Finn from the family, Arthur taking revenge on Polly Shelby's killer, and you find out Tommy didn't really have a terminal illness. So I feel like it closed off a lot of storylines, but also left room for any more seasons or films that may potentially come in the future. Yeah, this was also the longest episode out of all of them, so I felt like overall it was just a very strong, good episode. There's also a great scene, which is a personal favourite of mine, with Tommy and Arthur at the beginning, which shows the more vulnerable side to their relationship and concludes their relationship after everything they've been through in a great light. My second favourite episode is season 2, episode 6. Again, this is another season finale. This was almost my favourite episode, but it's at second place instead. The reason I like this is because this is in the peak of Tommy trying to expand his business and take over London in season 2. Now in this episode, I feel like Tommy has a lot of problems at the start, including defeating the main antagonist from this season, which is Sabini, getting Arthur out of prison, dealing with Major Campbell, and also dealing with the fact that he's been betrayed by his friend Alfie Solomon. You see Tommy come over a lot and achieve a lot in this episode, and I feel like the opening scene at the start of the episode with Tommy Shelby and Alfie Solomon is one of the best scenes in the whole franchise. I also feel like the scenes with Major Campbell and Tommy in it were great as well. And by far, I feel like the scene at the end where Tommy feel like he's going to get killed, but then doesn't get killed in the end, is also really great. I won't go into the reasons why, but if you watch this show, you'll understand why these scenes are probably one of the best. And at the end, obviously, he gets reunited with Grace, and Tommy at the end of the episode expresses his thoughts about him trying to expand his business even further in the next season. I feel like this was in the growing stage of Tommy's businesses. I feel like Cillian Murphy did a great job in this episode. Now my favourite episode, which many probably won't agree on, is season 5 episode 6. So season 5 showcases a new light to Tommy, and episode 6 does specifically. It showcases Tommy in a very mental, vulnerable state. At this point of his life, he's been through so much adversity, so much emotional damage, lost so many people along the way, that he's in a real deep, dark state of anxiety, paranoia, depression. And at season 5 episode 6 you kind of see that peak. Again, with the other episodes, the reason I like this one so much is because specific scenes in the episode. First thing I like is when you see Tommy Shelby finally get to meet Winston Churchill. I feel like this was a great scene. You almost see Tommy confide in Winston Churchill a bit, which you don't see him do with many people. And I thought their relationship was very interesting, and it would have been nice to see more scenes with them. You also see Alfie Solomons get reintroduced into this episode after we are made to believe that he is dead in season 4, which I feel like was a great scene as well. Then you also see that Michael finally tries to betray Tommy, and the scene with Michael and Tommy in the family meeting is also a great scene. It's also an end of a season where you see Tommy not actually defeat his enemy, and the enemy actually win. But overall, I like this episode because I feel like it paints the picture of how mentally down and depressed Tommy is in his life at this stage. Please let me know what you think of these episodes. Let me know what your favourite episodes are. If you are looking to watch Peaky Blinders and you haven't before, then you won't really want to just watch individual episodes because they won't really make sense. But I do recommend watching the whole thing. It is 6 seasons with 6 episodes per season, so it's not overly long. But thank you for watching.